I'm Joe Agostinelli, Social Media Manager at Greenway Health, and this is Putting Possibility into Practice, the podcast from Greenway Health. And today I am joined once again by our CEO, Scott Zimmerman. If you recall, last month, live at HIMSS 2018, we launched this very podcast. And this month, Scott joins me to talk about employee engagement. And Scott, when we talk about employee engagement, what is the engaged employee in your mind?
Hit me up front with a big question here, Joe. Employee engagement, probably a complex topic, but I try to think about it, and I think about it being very similar. What's happening with the organization as a whole and what's happening with an individual really can kind of fall into the metaphor of, are you playing offense or defense? Offense and defense in your life, offense or defense in your job. And are you showing up kind of putting your butt on the line with all the highs and lows that go with that, or are you busy covering it? And so to me, being engaged is about being emotionally invested in the work. And I think if you see people who aren't thriving, and they're dissatisfied with what's going on, they're often looking through the lens of, who's to blame. But for me as a leader, what we want to do inside the culture here is really empower individuals. How do we create an environment in which people can advocate for what they want? Do they see situations where they can transform their work for themselves, others, and our customers? And what we want to do is simply put them in a position where they can see what they want and really advocate for what they want so that we can go about making those changes in the business. And I think a little bit of what maybe we'll spend time talking about today is how we're seeing teams across the business really step in, say what they want, and do something about it to the benefit of our customers.
And that's a great segue to the next question. You talk about the different teams in our organization, and you have the privilege of meeting with so many of our teams and our team members in different offices and different locations. And recently on social media, one of our teams had presented you with a T-shirt that said, "Stop, collaborate, and listen." Now, I'm not asking you to channel your inner Vanilla Ice, but how can teams take that stop, collaborate, and listen message to heart?
Yeah, you're talking about a meeting really with our customer experience manager team. These are really the teams that I feel have the best view about what's going well across the organization, what's not going well, because they're interacting with our customers and really coordinating to knock things down. So we wanted to bring this team together to kind of explore what they see across the customer journey in terms of things we do well and things that are broken. And Jamal, who leads this team, kind of opened it up with that tagline, and everybody there was a reaction in the room when he said that, and I didn't know what it was. And one other person in the room didn't know what it was, so they kind of reminded me it was the opening to Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby song. And I think Jamal's got a little T-shirt operation or something going on inside of his house, so he printed up a T-shirt the next day just to kind of remind me of that moment. But my feeling is that in order for us to build something great for our customers, we have to be an organization that's fierce about telling the truth and making meaningful promises to each other and keeping them. And what was so outstanding about this group and their kind of coming together is how all in that emotional engagement that we were talking about to really surface what's working inside the organization and what's not working. And so often what's not working really requires coordination amongst our groups. And what this group did a great job of doing is coming in and staying super productive in terms of identifying areas where we have opportunity to work together. And they do that by saying, hey, what are the things that frustrate them about the way that we work, or what are they most excited about in terms of ways we could be working together? And I think the real opportunity for the organization is to recognize that none of these things can be accomplished by themselves, no individual group. Instead, what we have to recognize is that many groups are making promises to customers or each other that they can't fulfill. But we really need the broader group to be able to do that. And so a lot of the notion that we're trying to foster inside inside the organization where we have more friction is how can people have more of an open mind, not be so certain about the way things are, be really curious about other people's points of view. How can they have an open heart, which is really this notion around being compassionate and caring about other people versus being judgmental about why a situation is the way it is. And we talk about having an open hand, which is really the notion about being open to do work in different ways. And this team, as an example, they identified 32 opportunities that we have kind of across the organization to be more successful, or if we could let go of our historical way of doing things, we could, really enable a better working environment for each other and more success for our customers. And we really have teams kind of knocking down the decisions and actions that make those 32 ideas come to life.
Great. And once again, talk about segue into another question. And it sounds like team members making it happen. And one of your key monthly employee recognition initiatives is the You Make It Happen. Can you describe a little bit about what the You Make It Happen is and how it promotes employee engagement?
Yeah, I think the key is you, capital YOU, make it happen is a mantra. It's almost a meme, and a meme is an idea virus. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to focus on is every couple of weeks really bringing up these stories from across the organization where we see employees stepping into situations that they want to transform, identifying what's underlying it, advocating for what they'd like to see instead, and really assembling teams and leaders to really transform those individual situations. So I feel like one of the best ways for us to continue to support employees and make sure they understand we're an environment that's open to changing is to highlight how some of their peers in other parts of the business are changing long-standing problems by simply raising their hand and saying this is a problem. And so what we really try to do is highlight what the problem was and how it was affecting the business and customers. We exemplify how they went about trying to transform that situation, and we really try to acknowledge the team members who have done that. And so we've had stories from development. We have the sales team doing things in different ways. We have client teams doing things in different ways. We have people in finance groups all across the organization. Every function is doing great work, and what typically happens in a larger organization is people aren't aware of the way these things are changing and how individual people played a role in that. And so what we're really trying to do is emphasize the impact that individual employees stepping in and starting a conversation can have on the future of the business.
And shifting gears now, but also I guess along the same lines in not only engaging employees, but we're also now engaging customers with the Customer Advisory Board. And we talked a little bit about this on our last podcast in regards to Project Polaris. Can we provide an update on the Customer Advisory Board as they're getting ready to meet here in the next couple of weeks, correct?
That's right. First week of May, we're going to have the customers from the Customer Advisory Board. These are customers, forward-thinking customers from each of our three flagship platforms. I mean, we couldn't be more excited. Tens of millions of dollars that are going into the Project Polaris platform. We're excited about the speed with which we can produce this new product. But what we see as kind of being essential is the same thing we're trying to do inside the organization. We want to have increasing transparency inside the organization. It's maybe something we haven't done as well as we could have in the past with customers. And I think what I recognize is that we need to, and the team does as well, is we need to have the humility to recognize that we don't have all the answers. And so what we want to do is we want to build a system, have a system that's built by caregivers for caregivers. And the best way to do that is to have customers out of their natural environment, customers with a variety of different roles that look at the system from a different lens because they do different jobs and they have different outcomes they're looking for from the system. So we see the Customer Advisory Board as an opportunity to be very transparent with customers and really to dig in deep into the details. And this first time we'll be talking about the roadmap and the timelines, giving them a look at how we've prioritized certain items that we're doing. We want to understand which of the macro issues that are affecting them in the environment, demographic changes they're seeing, the change in the payment models, what's going on with caregiver job satisfaction and engagement, what plans they have for growth around their practice. Then we want to dig in deeper at a tactical level and say, how does the system really support them for the flexibility to be able to meet that emerging future? And then we'll be talking about things like, what does the migration need to look like? Like, what would a successful migration look like? What are the things we need to tend to that maybe we haven't tended to in the past? How should we be communicating this as an organization? We're not going to be successful if we're just launching out emails or talking about this sporadically. We really need every Greenway employee that interfaces with every role inside of a practice to be intimate with the progress that we're making on Polaris. So we really want to bounce off these customers. What's the most effective way and what's the most effective information for us to be sharing with each role inside of your practice? We want to be helping them understand when they should be making the decision to upgrade versus the decision to migrate, talking about what their data sharing needs might be. So we're just going to be getting into a lot of rich topics where they can really frame and shape how we move forward with Project Polaris.
And I'm sure we'll talk more about that at Customer Advisory Board and Project Polaris in our May podcast edition. I thank our CEO, Scott Zimmerman, for taking time out of his busy day to join us here on Putting Possibility into Practice, and he will be contributing monthly at least to our podcast. And we hope you do continue to listen to episodes. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. The podcast is available not only on SoundCloud and on our website at www.greenwayhealth.com, but also on the iTunes Store and on Google Play Music. And before we leave, we just want to let you know that our customer event, our annual customer event, is back. It's coming up August 10th through the 13th. It is Engage 2018. It'll be held at the Gaylord National Resort and Conference Center in National Harbor, Maryland. Once again, that's August 10th through the 13th. And for more information and to learn more about Engage and how you can register, you and your team members at your practice, visit www.greenwayhealth.com/engage. Thank you for listening to this episode of Putting Possibility into Practice. I'm Joe Augustinelli, Social Media Manager at Greenway Health,